weekend, there is a new tunnel at Old Trafford. Gary Neville, are you expecting a new Manchester United this season?
It's what Manchester United fans are hoping. It's what I'm hoping, obviously. They can't be as bad as last season. A lot of change off the pitch and on the pitch at Manchester United. Obviously, the new hierarchy that were placed into the club at the end of last season have now sort of started their roles. The CEO, sporting director, technical director, the new ownership obviously were in part way through last season. There's making a lot of changes. The new profile of player that they're signing seems, I'm more optimistic about that. But I do think there'll be some pain along the way. I think there's still some questions to answer, not just for the club but for Erik ten Hag as well.
Speaking of Erik ten Hag, his position was under threat for much of the summer. The new leadership team decided to stick with him. Were you concerned by how long it dragged out? And then are you actually impressed by how they've turned it around? Because they now seem to actually be building quite a strong relationship.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it threw them, the cup final, beating Manchester City. It threw us all, I think, and I think they were probably prepared that Erik ten Hag would leave. And then when they did flirt with other managers, it probably didn't go as well with the other managers that they thought. And I think, look, every Manchester United fan, including myself, got to a point after the cup final. I think even before the cup final, some fans wanted him to stay, but I think after the cup final, most Manchester United fans, the large majority, wanted Erik ten Hag to stay in situ because, look, you can look at this club over the last 12 years and think, the coach is the problem. You know, is Jose Mourinho the problem? Is David Moyes the problem? Is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the problem? Is Louis van Gaal the problem? Is Erik ten Hag the problem? Or is the actual structure above and what's happening and the poor recruitment and the changes and the sort of the pinball sort of nature of the football club, is that the biggest problem? So I think the idea that at least Erik ten Hag can have another season with hopefully more stable ownership and people around him, that would mean that actually we're not making the big decisions badly that we have in the past, particularly on recruitment. So I'm hopeful that that decision of sort of supporting him pays off.
On that point of recruitment, you said you've been happy with the profile of signings thus far. Can you also note that change in approach where they're a lot more aggressive, lining up deals in advance, not just waiting for outgoings, and then changing the dynamic of the side with, as we saw, Wan-Bissaka, defensive specialist, out for Mazraoui, who's highly technical, two-footed.
Look, I know Dan Ashworth very well from working with him with England when I was under Roy Hodgson. They will not make the errors that have been made in the transfer, the obvious errors to everybody. And Casemiro's a fantastic player and has had a great career, but the money that was paid for him, the £60 million, the $20 million a year, and the 4-year contract with a year, I think, option at the end, that will never happen under Dan Ashworth. That signing will never go ahead in the future. So that's what gives me comfort. So you're right, the profile of players that are coming in will be different. They won't get everyone right, and there will be some pain, but you just know there's going to be better decision makers and calmer heads. If they lose tonight and lose the next game, let's say that happens, they won't panic up there. They'll let the players get, that they obviously need to return from injury, the ones that have come back from the World Cup. They'll let that happen, there'll be patience, and I think there'll be a better thought process going into the new season and into the future for Manchester United.
There's been a lot of positivity around the club, bar the injuries during pre-season, but in terms of, like we said, the manager staying, the relationship building between the leadership, the signings that have been made, will that only get tested when there are setbacks? You're saying they'll remain calm, but what about the supporters and stuff? That needs to be a united sense of calm.
When I say remain calm, United have been easy pickings for clubs to get sort of more money off them for like 10, 12 years now. And you think about the sort of panic that's gone on in the transfer window and the poor way in which they've sort of identified players. Sancho took 2 years to get over the line. Frankie de Jong, it went on for an age. I don't think that type of thing will happen too often in the future. So they will remain calm, and I don't think they will panic. Erik ten Hag will come under pressure if he starts playing like they did last season. We cannot have those types of performances. And the injuries you keep mentioning, look, we can have one bad season through injuries, but if you keep getting injuries, you're either recruiting players who are injury prone, or you're doing something wrong in training, the way in which you're preparing the players. So that's got to stop as well. We need reliability and consistency. Every club and every coach needs that. So they have got some questions to answer. Players obviously who had poor seasons last year, the balance of the side. Hoyland injured and what happens at centre forward, which of the 6 centre backs that they've got are going to play as a pair. So there's lots of things to resolve for Eric Ten Hag and Manchester United. The reason the fans are optimistic is that the 3 big things that I've whinged about for many years are the training ground being under par, they're now spending 50 million on it. The stadium, I was in a meeting this morning on the task force and I know how special that could be in the next 5-10 years. And they've changed the hierarchy of the club with football people that I think will make better decisions. So they have made some big changes. Whether that pays off, we'll only see in probably 2, 3, 4 years, but at least there are changes being made.